first strike came without warning. One moment, Earth was in peace talks with the Zirine Confederacy. The next, the skies split open with dark alien ships silent, massive and armed. No one knew why they attacked. The humans had followed every agreement, every treaty. But the Zirine didn't come to talk this time. They came to burn. Private Jace Keller was one of the few stationed on Arcanus Station when it started. Located far beyond Earth's reach, Arcanus was more of a listening post than a battle station. It wasn't meant for war. It didn't even have real weapons, just sensors, supply storage, and a skeleton crew of 15. When the first Zirine cruiser appeared on their radar, the crew didn't panic. They assumed it was an error. But the error turned to horror when the cruiser opened fire. The station shook. Lights flickered. Alarms howled. "We're under attack." Someone screamed over the intercom. JACE ran through the narrow metal corridors. Heart pounding. This wasn't training. This wasn't a drill. This was real. The first explosion ruptured the east wing, venting oxygen into space. Screams were cut short by the cold vacuum. By the time Jace reached the command center, only 6 remained alive. Among them was the base commander, Captain Renault, a hard man with tired eyes. "They're boarding," Renault said, voice calm. Like he'd already made peace with dying. "You, Keller. Take the escape pod and go to the surface." "What?" "No. I can fight." "You'll fight smarter if you're alive." Jace wanted to argue, but another blast hit, closer this time. The air smelled like burning wires and melting plastic. Renault shoved him toward the hatch. "Go." He went. The escape pod was small, barely more than a metal coffin with thrusters. Jace slammed the hatch shut, buckled in, and launched. Flames licked the sides as it cut through the atmosphere of Eora 3, the jungle-covered planet, the station. Orbited. He didn't remember blacking out. He only remembered the crash. The pod hit something hard, then tumbled. He woke with blood on his forehead and his ribs aching. Night had fallen on the planet, and the jungle around him was alive with strange sounds, growls, chirps, rustling leaves. He pulled himself out of the pod, grabbing the emergency kit. Number. Weapons. Just a flare, some rations, a water purifier, and a translator chip. He limped forward, brushing aside thick vines glowing faint blue in the moonlight. The forest seemed to breathe. He didn't know if the air was safe. He didn't know if the Zirine were down here. He walked for hours toward nowhere. The communicator was useless. The stars above looked unfamiliar. He was lost, and the jungle was watching. Then he saw her it at first. He thought it was a trick of the light. A figure half covered in leaves stood still near a glowing tree. But as he approached, the figure turned. It was female, clearly alien, but shaped like a human woman. Her skin shimmered like silver under the moon. Her eyes were deep violet. Her hair like flowing smoke. She didn't flinch when he raised his hands. "Wait," he said, pressing the translator chip to his throat. She tilted her head. "I'm human," he added. "I mean no harm." She watched him carefully, not blinking. Then, slowly, she stepped closer. Her voice, when it came, was like the wind through glass. "You fell from the sky." He nodded. "I escaped. The Zirine attacked my station. I'm not one of them." She didn't answer right away. Then she turned and began to walk into the trees. She looked over her shoulder once and gave a soft smile. He followed. He didn't know why. He just did. She led him through the jungle, silent except for the sound of leaves brushing their shoulders. The deeper they went, the stranger the forest became. Glowing plants, giant insects, trees that seemed to shift when you weren't looking. Finally, they reached a narrow rock face covered in moss. The alien woman pressed her hand to it. A door opened. It wasn't technology. It was alive. Inside was a small cave. Warm, dry. a natural hollow lined with smooth stone and plant fibers. Bioluminescent moss glowed above, casting soft light over. The space dot she sat on one side of the cave and gestured to the other. "There's room for two in here." Jace hesitated. He didn't know her name, didn't know if she was safe. But something in her voice made the cold in his chest fade a little. He sat down. The air smelled like citrus and dust. The sound of rain echoed faintly from the outside. She looked at him, eyes calm but filled with questions. Then she said, "You shouldn't be here." "I didn't plan it," he replied. "You're in the middle of a war you don't understand." She whispered, "And I'm not what you think." Jace stared at her dot outside. Something howled in the jungle. But inside the cave, the silence between them grew heavier. Dot and the real war, the one not in the stars but hidden below, was just beginning. Asterisk couldn't sleep. The warmth of the cave should have helped, but the silence wrapped around him like a trap. Every sound outside, the distant screech, the rustling leaves, even the soft drip of water felt like a warning. But it wasn't the jungle that kept him awake. It was her. She sat across from him, legs crossed, watching him without blinking. Her silver skin shimmered faintly under the glowing moss. She didn't speak again, but her eyes spoke enough. "Are you going to tell me your name?" he asked, trying to sound calm. She didn't move. Then, softly she answered, "Keleth, Keleth." He let the name rest on his tongue. "You helped me. Why?" "I don't know," she said. "Maybe because you looked more lost than dangerous." "I was both." Keleth gave a small smile. It wasn't warm. It was sad. "I know the Zyrene," she said. "They do not attack without reason. Unless they believe they are cleaning a threat." Jace frowned. "Earth isn't a threat. Not yet." The way she said it made the back of his neck prickle. He sat up straighter. "Do you know why they attacked?" Keleth didn't answer right away. She stood and walked to the mouth of the cave. The rock opened again, alive, responsive to her touch. She looked out into the night. "They think they're protecting the galaxy," she said quietly. "They believe humans are growing too fast, spreading too far. The Zyrene have seen what happens when fire is left unchecked." "We're not fire," Jace said, standing beside her. She turned to face him. Her violet eyes were sharp now, glowing faintly. "You are. You don't see it, but I do." Jace's jaw tightened. "We build. We trade. We make peace. You also conquer," she whispered. "You tame what doesn't want to be tamed. You strip planets clean, and you never stop growing." He looked away. Maybe she was right. Maybe that's what scared the Zyrene, but they didn't have to start a war. Keleth stepped outside. "Come, there's something you need to see." He followed her into the night. The jungle felt colder now. The glowing plants swayed softly, like they were listening. Strange creatures moved in the shadows, some crawling, some floating. None came close. They walked for an hour without speaking. Jace's legs ached, but he didn't complain. Something about Keleth's silence made him feel like complaining would be a mistake. Then they reached it. A ship, or what used to be one, half buried in vines and dirt. The craft had clearly crashed long ago. Its hull was cracked. The symbols on its side weren't human or Zyrene. They were older, sharper, almost like claws carved into metal. "What is this?" Jace asked. Keleth stared at the wreck. "A warning." He stepped closer. "This isn't Zyrene tech." "No," she said. "It's from the ones before, the ones even the Zyrene fear." Jace turned slowly toward her. "They're real?" "They were. And some say they still are." Keleth touched the ship's ruined surface. "They came once, long ago. Number. One could stop them. Not the Zyrene, not the Kareth, not us. They didn't want land or peace. They wanted to remake life itself. Jace ran his hand along a broken piece of metal. So what happened? We fought, she said. Together. And barely survived. Jace's eyes narrowed. You think they're coming back? Keleth didn't answer, not directly. Instead, she pointed to a deep scratch along the side of the hull. Strange markings glowed faintly beneath it, runes that moved slightly like alive ink. Jace leaned closer. The symbol shifted, responding. To him. Keleth's hand grabbed his arm and yanked him back. Don't touch it again, she hissed. It knows you now. He pulled free, confused and a little shaken. What do you mean? Keleth looked pale for the first time. That ship only reacts to the ones who carry the old spark. Bloodline memory. It should not answer to a human. But it did. Yes, she whispered. That's the problem. Jace stepped back from the wreck, the vines already moving slowly to cover it again. What do you want from me, Keleth? She looked at him with something like fear. I don't want anything from you. But the galaxy might. He felt the weight of her words press on his chest. Then the forest went silent. All sound vanished. Even the wind stopped. Keleth grabbed his wrist. We have to move, now. A distant hum grew in the air deep, rising, like metal grinding inside. Bone. It came from above. A light cut through the trees. Then another. They found us, Keleth said. Zerine scouts. They're scanning? No, she said. They're hunting. They ran through the glowing jungle, ducking under thick leaves and stepping over strange roots. The sound of machines moved closer. Drones, maybe? No voices. Just the low mechanical whine. Jace could barely keep up. Then Keleth pulled him into a hollow tree trunk. It closed around them like a second cave, hiding their heat signature. Her body was close to his, her breathing fast, her eyes locked on. The faint light shining through cracks in the wood. He whispered, Why are they after us? Keleth didn't answer, because maybe even she didn't know the full truth yet. But something had changed the moment the wreck recognized him, and now the entire war might be about that one mistake. About one human. Him. Jace stayed completely still, pressed tightly against Keleth inside the living trunk. The soft pulsing of the tree's skin vibrated against his back, and her silver arm was tense beside him. Outside, a sharp whine echoed through the jungle closer now. The Zerian drones hovered just meters away, sweeping their sensors over every root and branch. He held his breath. Keleth didn't blink. Her eyes stayed fixed on the light sliding across the small crack in the bark. Then just as suddenly as they came, the lights vanished. The hum drifted off into the distance, but Keleth didn't move. She waited. 10 full minutes passed before she finally relaxed and whispered, They're gone. For now. The tree's bark opened with a wet sound, and cold air rushed in. Jace stumbled out, his muscles stiff from the stillness. They tracked us fast, he said. They weren't looking for just any survivor, she replied, staring into the canopy. They were looking for you. Jace turned to her. You still think the Zerine are scared of humans? Keleth shook her head. They aren't afraid of your people anymore. They're afraid of what you might wake up. Jace didn't understand, but he didn't push her yet. They moved through the jungle until the moonlight started to fade. At the edge of a cliff, Keleth stopped. Below them, in the valley, lay a hidden structure. It looked like a temple made of bones and dark crystal, nothing like any tech Jace had seen. Giant statues with insect-like faces lined the path leading inside. Faint lights flickered deep within the cracks of the building. Jace frowned. Another ship? No, a tomb. Keleth stepped forward, her voice low. This is where they sealed the last of the old ones, not killed, sealed. No one knows how long the lock will last. And that wreck back there? Jace asked. Same species? Same creators, she whispered. Same madness. Jace crossed his arms. You brought me here to see this? I brought you here, she said, turning toward him, because your touch woke part of it, and now it wants more. He stared at her. What does that mean? Keleth walked to the edge of the cliff, arms folded tight around herself. It means the thing inside that tomb may already know your name. The silence between them thickened like mist. Jay stepped beside her. Why help me, Keleth? Why not turn me into the Zerine? Her voice trembled, but only slightly. Because long ago my people made a deal with the Zerine. We helped them. Trapped the old ones, but we were promised protection in return. They lied. We were forgotten. She looked at him then. You're not one of them, but you're not innocent either. And that makes you dangerous, like fire in a dry forest. I didn't ask for any of this. No one ever does. Lightning cracked far in the distance, a strange blue bolt splitting the sky. A storm was coming, unnatural and fast. Keleth turned. We need shelter. They descended into the valley, each step growing colder. The plants around the tomb looked dead gray and twisted, their roots broken and dry. Even the glowing moss had faded to black dot. The temple door stood closed, covered in markings like the ones on the crashed ship. Jace reached toward it, but Keleth grabbed his hand. No, she said sharply. Not again. He froze. Keleth moved closer to the door and placed her own hand against it. Nothing happened. I was hoping it might let us in, she muttered, but it only responds to... She looked at Jace again. He stepped forward. We have no choice. Before she could stop him, Jace placed both palms on the door. The symbols flared. The wind screamed. The door didn't open, it breathed open. Like lungs gasping after centuries. A wave of heat and dust hit their faces. From the darkness inside, a deep voice echoed not in sound, but inside their heads. It was cold and old and full of teeth. Human, returned, incomplete. Jace's knees buckled. Blood trickled from his nose. Keleth caught him, eyes wide with horror. It's speaking to you? He nodded, barely able to stay conscious. What does it want? Her answer chilled him more than the air. It wants to finish what it started thousands of years ago, but now, with you. Inside the tomb, a soft light flared like a heartbeat. The temple wasn't a prison anymore. It was waking up, and it knew who had touched its relic, who had survived the crash, and who still carried the key. Asterisk. Jace couldn't stop shaking. Even after Keleth pulled him away from the door, even after the strange whisper in his head faded, his hands kept trembling. His bones ached like ice was buried inside them, and his vision blurred around the edges. Something had touched his mind in that moment, something ancient, heavy, and still very much alive. Keleth sat him against the base of a twisted tree. She pressed her hand to his chest, feeling his heartbeat, then placed a glowing leaf under his tongue. The taste was sharp and bitter, but slowly. His breath came easier. You touched the threshold too early, she said quietly. It tried to enter you. What is it? He asked, voice hoarse. What is inside that tomb? Keleth looked at the black temple, her silver face drawn with fear. It has no name. Or if it did, it was lost in the last cycle. It was once a god to some, a monster to others. It's not a species, it's hunger given form. Jace rubbed his face, still pale. It called me incomplete, she nodded. Because you are. But something in your blood, maybe a memory, maybe a pattern matches what it needs to complete itself. And that wreck, he muttered, the one you showed me before. That's how it first came here? Keleth's voice dropped. No, that was one of the others. The first scouts. Carriers. They were like seeds dropped on different planets, waiting for someone to find them. He looked up at her. So I just woke it up? She met his eyes. No, You made it curious. That scared him more. Caliph helped him stand. We should not stay here. If the tomb is stirring, the Zerreen will sense it. They'll come to destroy everything around it, but that'll kill us too. Exactly. They moved quickly, climbing out of the valley under the strange light of the rising twin moons. The air grew colder with every step. The vines whispered around them, and small creatures watched from the trees silent and unmoving. Even the jungle was afraid now. As they climbed a ridge, Kelith suddenly stopped. She dropped low and motioned to the ground. Jace crouched beside her. Below, at the edge of the forest clearing, were Zerreen soldiers, 3 of them. Tall, armored in living metal, their glowing yellow visors scanning the ground. They weren't searching like before. They knew, Kelith whispered. They've locked onto the tomb's pulse. But they won't enter it. They're waiting. For what? For whoever opened the door. Jace's heart pounded. Suddenly, one of the Zyrene turned its head sharply. It looked straight toward the ridge. They can sense me, he whispered. Like the ship. Kelith grabbed his hand. Run. They sprinted through the forest, dodging low branches and glowing roots. Behind them, weapons lit up with soft pulses. Zerreen plasma rifles charging. The chase was real now. Blasts of blue fire tore through the trees, striking trunks and vaporizing leaves. Jace nearly tripped as a root moved underfoot. Kelith pulled him up without stopping. A tree exploded behind them, showering them with ash and fire. Almost there, she shouted. A narrow passage opened ahead, 2 huge stones leaning together to form a cave. As they ran through it, Kelith pressed her hand to the side. The stones closed behind them. The noise outside vanished. Silence fell. Only their breaths remained. The cave was tight, barely lit by small glowing insects clinging to the ceiling. The walls were smooth, polished. Carvings etched into the stone glowed faint blue, ancient writing, spiraling like a story that never ended. Jace leaned against the wall, gasping. That was close. Kelith nodded, eyes scanning the walls. This is one of the old shelters. From before the last purge. The Zerreen built this? No, she said. My ancestors did. To hide from the old ones when the stars bled. Jace turned, staring at her. How old are you? She paused, then said simply, old enough to remember what the Zerreen want to forget. He sat down, overwhelmed. Why me, Kelith? Why would some ancient monster choose me? She looked at him for a long time, then knelt beside him. It doesn't choose by name, she whispered. It chooses by need. You were broken alone, desperate, lost, and that's what it feeds on. That's comforting, he muttered. She smiled faintly. It's not about comfort, it's about truth. If we survive, we need to understand what you are now. Not just human, not just soldier. You're a door. He looked at her. To what? To whatever comes next. The lights in the carvings flickered. A symbol began to glow on the wall, one Kelith didn't touch. She stood up slowly, her voice almost a whisper. It's speaking again. The walls VIBRATED.JACE stood 2 from behind the stone walls. A deep voice echoed not from the tomb this time, but from somewhere beneath them. The blood speaks. The door is open. The vessel is near. Kelith's eyes widened. They're not just tracking you, she said. They're calling to others. Others like what? She didn't answer, because the truth was already in both of their minds. Jace wasn't the only one the tomb had marked, and whatever else it had touched might already be on its way. The walls of the shelter were trembling now. Jace felt it deep in his chest, not just vibration, but something else. Like a heartbeat pulsing through stone. Kelith stepped back from the carvings, her face pale under the shifting light. The glowing runes were changing, moving on their own, forming new patterns. They're rewriting, she whispered, responding to you. Jace didn't move. What are they saying? Keleth looked at the symbols, her fingers tracing them in the air. They speak of arrival, of something ancient returning. Not alone. You said this was a shelter. Safe. It was, she said, when the old blood was silent, but now you've awakened it. Jace paced the narrow cave, his mind racing. The tomb calls to me. The drones chased us. These walls are talking. What do they all want? They want to finish the last cycle, Keleth said. And it begins with you. He stopped walking. What if I just leave? Go back to human space. Forget this place? Keleth stared at him. You think it would let you go now? Jace didn't answer. He knew she was right. Whatever had touched him, whatever knew his blood, wouldn't just forget. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed through the cave. The stone shifted. Dust fell from the ceiling. Keleth turned sharply toward the sound. That wasn't from outside, she said. Jace narrowed his eyes. What do you mean? I mean, she whispered, we're not alone in here. A low, strange clicking sound echoed down one of the passageways, leading deeper into the stone. Click. Click dash click. Something was walking, not stomping like a Zerine. Not slithering. Crawling. Jace grabbed the flare stick from his belt and activated it. A red light flared to life, casting shadows across the stone. Keleth drew a small blade from her waist, curved, ancient-looking, glowing faintly with blue runes. They stepped carefully down the tunnel. The sound was closer now, breathing, wet and gurgling. Then they saw a dot. At first, it looked like a shadow on the wall. But as the light moved, it revealed the creature's body, tall and thin, its limbs too long, its skin stretched tight over a half-bone frame. Its eyes were black voids, but deep inside, something shimmered, like starlight trapped behind glass. Keleth whispered, one of the early ones. It was left behind. The creature turned toward them. Its mouth opened, revealing a row of sharp, needle-like teeth, but it didn't speak. It didn't growl. It simply looked at Jace. And then it bowed. Very slowly. Jace's blood ran cold. Why is it doing that? Keleth pulled him back. It knows you. It recognizes you. But I don't know it. That doesn't matter. You've been marked. The creature took a step forward. Keleth raised her blade. Stop. It did in single quotes T. Instead, it raised a bony hand and pointed at Jace's chest. A whisper echoed in their minds, not in words, but in memory. A flood of images, fire raining from the skies, stars collapsing, a great gate opening somewhere beyond the known universe. And at the center, a human figure standing with glowing eyes. Jace gasped and fell to his knees. Keleth rushed to his side, holding him upright. It's showing you the future, she said. Jace's voice cracked. Is that me? Is that what I become? She didn't answer. The creature stepped back, bowed again, and slowly faded into the wall-like mist, disappearing into cracks. Jace was still shaking. It wasn't attacking, he whispered. It was showing me something. Keleth helped him sit against the wall again. A warning, maybe? Or a memory from the last cycle. He looked up at her. What did I just see? That gate, that figure. She sat beside him, quiet for a moment. There was a prophecy, a long time ago, that when the stars began to bleed again and the tomb stirred, a bridge would rise between old life and new. That bridge would look human, but it wouldn't be. You think I'm the bridge? She didn't answer. But her silence was enough. Then, a sound tore through the cave, not from inside this time. It was outside, a ship. Big, low, descending fast. Keleth stood. That's not a drone. They rushed toward the exit, pushing through the rock passage as it slowly opened. Wind hit them hard. In the sky above the jungle, a large black ship hovered. Not Zirane. Not human. Something else. Symbols along the hull glowed a deep green. The air buzzed, the trees bent, and from beneath the ship, 3 figures began to descend, shaped like Kelith, but armored in crystal and bone. Kelith stepped back. Her face had gone pale. "They're from the deep vaults," she whispered. "My people's secret bloodline. Guardians. They should be extinct." One of the armored aliens looked directly at Jace, and then it spoke in his mind. The vessel. "Lives, the gate shall open. He must come with us." Kelith reached for her blade, eyes full of fear. "They won't ask again." The wind howled across the cliff as the 3 armored figures from the deep vaults floated closer. Their boots never touched the ground. The glowing green veins in their armor pulsed like slow heartbeats. Jace felt a strange weight pressing into his chest, like gravity itself didn't trust them. Kelith moved in front of him, blade drawn, her body tense. "Step back," she warned. "He's under my protection." The lead figure tilted its head, then spoke again, not with sound, but directly into their minds. "The vessel is not yours to protect. He belongs to the pattern now." Jace's heart raced. "What's the pattern?" Kelith answered quietly, without looking at him. "A living map, a force that chooses carriers. Some call it destiny. Others call it doom." The second alien raised its hand. A faint green ripple passed through the air, and Jace staggered. His head filled with images, stars folding in on themselves, ancient cities crumbling, a giant eye in space staring at him through time. He dropped to one knee. Kelith stepped forward. "Stop it." The energy ceased. The leader floated closer, then slowly touched down. Its helmet retracted, revealing a face much like Kelith's, but older, more worn, with skin that shimmered like stone. Its eyes were like emeralds buried deep in snow. "We are not here to harm him," it said aloud now, voice cold but clear. "We are here to complete the cycle." Kelith's grip tightened. "No, the last cycle ended in fire. You want that." "Again?" The figure nodded slowly. "It was not finished." Jace stood up, eyes narrowed. "You say I'm part of this, but I never chose anything." The figure looked at him. "You were chosen before your blood had a name. When the old ones fell, their spark searched for a new shape. You carry it now. A match in a galaxy of dry leaves." Kelith stepped between them. "You'll burn us all." "We'll awaken what is necessary," the figure replied. Behind them, the jungle shifted. A low rumble echoed from the ground. Jace felt it again, that pull in his bones, that whisper in his mind. The tomb was calling. The ship, the creature, the carvings. All of it had been leading here. He looked at Kelith. "If I go with them, what happens?" Her voice broke a little. "They'll take you to the gate. They'll use you to open it." "And what's behind the gate?" She stared at him. "No one knows. Not even them. But every time it opens, something terrible follows." Jace turned back to the armored aliens. "You said I'm incomplete." The leader nodded. "Your body is ready. Your will is not." Jace clenched his fists. "Then maybe I'll choose not to open anything." The figure tilted its head. "It doesn't matter. You'll open it by living." He stepped back. Kelith grabbed his hand. "We run." And they did. The jungle exploded behind them as the Guardians followed, not flying but gliding just above the ground, silent and fast. Branches ripped past. Leaves sliced their skin. The jungle screamed with motion. Even the glowing creatures that once watched in silence now scattered in panic. Jace. Kelith pushed through a wall of vines and reached a ravine. The only way across was a narrow stone bridge, ancient and crumbling. Kelith didn't hesitate. She grabbed his wrist. "Don't stop." They sprinted across. Rocks cracked beneath their feet. The wind from the Guardians whipped against their backs. Halfway across, the bridge shook. Keleth turned. The three figures had stopped at the edge. They didn't follow. They won't cross, she whispered. Why not? This place is sealed by old rites. They can't enter without being invited. Jace looked back at them. The leader stood still, staring across the gap. Then it said one final thing. You can run from us, vessel, but you can't run from what wakes inside you. Then they vanished, fading like smoke in the wind. Jace collapsed to his knees. Keleth sat beside him, both of them out of breath. Where are we now? He asked. Keleth looked up at the twisted stone trees, the dark symbols carved in spirals around them. We're in the Woundlands, she said. The last place that resisted the old ones, and the only place left where their reach is weak. Jace touched his chest. I can still feel it. Like something's and waiting. Keleth nodded. Because it is. And it's inside you now. He looked at her. Her eyes weren't just guarded now, they were sad. You were just a soldier before, she said softly. Now, you might be the galaxy's last mistake. Jace stood in the heart of the Woundlands, surrounded by stone trees twisted like frozen screams. The air here was still but not dead. It watched. He felt it in his chest. Not fear, not pain. Something deeper, something old. Keleth moved beside him, eyes scanning the strange symbols etched into every rock and root. This place remembers, she said. Every soul lost to the last war is carved into this ground. Jace stepped forward slowly. And I'm supposed to end this. Or begin it again? Keleth looked at him, her voice soft. That's what they believe. He turned to her. But what do you believe? She didn't answer at first. Then she whispered, I believe the galaxy doesn't need another gate opened. It needs one finally shut. The air grew colder. Jace reached into his chest pocket and pulled out the translator chip, now dark and odd-and cracked. He didn't need it anymore. The voice inside him had learned his tongue. Come, it whispered. Complete the passage. Jace dropped the chip. Ahead, a pillar of ancient stone rose from the ground, glowing faint gold. It wasn't just a marker, it was a keyhole. The final lock. And he was the key. His body began to move before he could stop it. Keleth grabbed his hand. Don't, she said. You still have a choice. I don't feel like I do, he whispered, trembling. You're human. That means your greatest gift is choice. He stared at her. At her silver skin, at the scars across her arms from battles she never spoke of. She could have left him when they first met. She could have handed him to the Zerine. She didn't. She stayed. She protected him. Even now, and she was still here, he looked at the pillar. At the glowing light, he took a step back. Why do you resist? The voice hissed in his mind. We offer unity, power, purpose. I've seen your purpose, Jace said aloud. It ends in ash. Keleth's grip tightened. Suddenly, the ground shook. The pillar split. From beneath it, a black figure began to rise tall, shapeless at first, like oil stretching into form. Then it took shape, humanoid, but too tall, too thin. Its face held no features, only a swirling void where its mouth should be. It didn't walk. It flowed toward them. Keleth stood in front of Jace. I won't let it take you. The figure paused. Then it smiled, though it had no mouth. Keleth raised her blade. Glowing blue. The thing reached out, not with a weapon, but with a hand. Slow, inviting. Come, vessel. End the cycle. Open the gate. Jace stepped beside her. What if I can end it another way? The figure turned its head, curious. Jace closed his eyes. He let the voice speak. Let the visions fill his mind. But instead of surrendering, he studied. Then he saw the gate. A tier in space, surrounded by millions of stars, and beyond it a world of screaming, light and endless hunger, but he also saw something else. Obeyed. Moment. A choice. The first human who was touched by the pattern, long ago, had chosen silence, but that silence wasn't peace. It was delay. Jace opened his eyes. I won't open your gate. The figure pulsed with rage. You cannot deny what's in your blood. Maybe not, Jace said, but I can burn it out. He reached into his pack, pulled the flare stick, the one Keleth gave him. When they first fled the jungle, he lit it. The flame flickered weakly. Then he stepped into the energy circle surrounding the pillar. The flare burst into white, fire fueled by whatever was inside him. Keleth shouted, Jace! No! He turned to her one last time. You said there's room for two in here, he said, but this thing? There's no room for it. He threw the flare into the pillar's core. The light exploded. The ground cracked. The figure screamed not with sound, but with fury that shattered the air. Keleth was thrown back as the entire Wandlands lit up like a dying sun. Every symbol, every tree, every stone burned with the fire Jace had released, and in the center of it all, he stood tall until he vanished in the light. Silence fell. Smoke drifted across the scorched jungle. Keleth woke to ash falling like snow. The black figure was gone. The pillar was broken. The gate was sealed. She walked to the center, where he had stood. Only one thing remained. His handprint burned into the stone. Still warm. She touched it gently. And smiled. He was human, she whispered, and that was enough. Above her, the stars were quiet once more. Asterisk.